Have you ever listened to someone speak English so naturally that it felt effortless and wondered, will I ever sound like that? You're not alone. Millions of learners dream the same dream, but most give up before they see how close they really are. Here on English Story Avenue, we don't just learn English, we live it through stories. Every story you'll hear will inspire you, teach you, and take you one step closer to the fluent, confident English speaker inside you. Because learning a language isn't about rules, it's about feeling, growth, and believing that your voice matters. Welcome to English Story Avenue, where every story brings your English to life. Have you ever asked yourself why some people seem to learn English effortlessly, while others struggle despite years of study? What if the secret isn't more grammar, bigger vocabulary lists, or endless drills, but a completely different approach to learning? Imagine if English could become not just something you study, but something you live, something that energizes your mind, opens your heart, and transforms your confidence. This story is about that transformation. It's about how small daily habits, curiosity, emotion, and storytelling can supercharge your English and make it a natural part of your life. It's about a journey where mistakes are teachers, practice is magic, and fluency is not a distant goal. It's an inevitable result of the way you think, feel, and live in English every day. As you listen, you'll discover 9 powerful insights that can change the way you approach English forever. By the end, you'll see that learning English is not just about language. It's about growth, connection, and becoming the best version of yourself. Consistency is the quiet force behind every success story, especially when it comes to mastering English. Too many learners chase perfection. They want the perfect accent, the perfect grammar, the perfect sentence, before they even start speaking. But perfection is not the starting point. It's the destination that only becomes visible through consistent effort. Think about it this way. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. It grows silently, little by little, through daily nourishment. In the same way, your English grows with every small, repeated action. Listening to a podcast each morning, writing a few lines in your journal, or speaking to yourself in English for just a minute a day. Each effort may seem tiny on its own, but together they create unstoppable momentum. Consistency builds confidence because it transforms learning from a struggle into a rhythm. When you practice daily, English becomes a part of your life, not a task on your to-do list. The words start to flow naturally, and your mind becomes familiar with their patterns. Even if you make mistakes, your steady practice keeps you moving forward. On the other hand, perfectionism freezes progress. When you wait for the right time to speak, you lose valuable opportunities to grow. The truth is, fluency doesn't come from flawless grammar. It comes from fearless repetition. Every conversation, every sentence you try, even with errors, sharpens your skill. The learners who improve fastest are not those who study the most. They're the ones who show up every day, even for 5 minutes, even when they don't feel ready. They don't depend on motivation, they depend on habit. They understand that progress is built by persistence, not pressure. So, if you want to supercharge your English, make consistency your best friend. Forget about sounding perfect. Focus on showing up. 1 word today, 1 sentence tomorrow, 1 story next week. Over time, those small steps will lead you to a level of fluency that perfectionists only dream about. Curiosity is the spark that turns English learning from a chore into an adventure. When you're curious, you stop studying English out of obligation. You start exploring it out of fascination. You begin to see each word, each phrase, not as a rule to memorize, but as a key to unlock a new idea, a new story, or even a new part of yourself. Many learners lose motivation because they treat English like a checklist, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, but curiosity changes that. It shifts your focus from, I have to learn this, to, I want to understand this. For example, instead of just memorizing the phrase, break the ice, a curious learner asks, why do people say that? What's the story behind it? Suddenly, language becomes alive. It's not just structure, it's culture, emotion, and imagination combined. Adil, the learner from our story, experienced this transformation. When he became curious, he stopped studying English mechanically. He started exploring YouTube videos, stories, and books simply because he wanted to. He didn't just hear words, he felt them. He'd ask himself, why does this sentence sound powerful? Or what emotion is hidden behind this tone? That curiosity made every lesson enjoyable and meaningful. Curiosity has another magical effect. It removes fear. When you're genuinely interested, mistakes no longer feel embarrassing. They feel like discoveries. You don't say, I failed to speak correctly. You say, oh, that's how I can say it better next time. You start chasing answers, not avoiding them. And that's the secret of lasting passion. When curiosity drives your learning, English stops being a subject. It becomes a story you want to keep reading. You start watching movies not just for fun, but to catch phrases. You listen to songs and search for meanings. You begin to think, feel, and even dream in English because you're emotionally connected to it. In the end, curiosity doesn't just help you learn faster. It helps you fall in love with the process. And once you love the process, fluency becomes inevitable. Emotion is the heartbeat of true learning. Without it, words remain empty and lessons fade quickly. But when you connect emotionally to what you learn, English stops being a collection of sounds and symbols. It becomes part of who you are. You begin to feel the language, not just understand it. Think about your favorite song. You might not remember every word, but you remember how it makes you feel. That's the same power emotion has in learning English. When you attach feelings, joy, sadness, hope, curiosity, to the words you hear or speak, your brain remembers them effortlessly. The emotion gives the language a home inside you. Adil discovered this secret by accident. Instead of repeating phrases mechanically, he began choosing words that moved him. When he said, I believe in myself, he didn't just pronounce the words, he felt them. Each repetition filled him with strength and motivation. That emotional charge made his English practice unforgettable and deeply personal. Science agrees. Emotional learning creates stronger memories. When you care about what you're learning, your mind stays alert, your focus deepens, and your recall improves. It's why a line from a movie can stay in your mind for years, while a grammar rule fades in days. Emotion is the glue that makes knowledge stick. But emotional connection isn't only about memory, it's also about expression. When you speak English with emotion, your words carry life. You don't just communicate meaning, you communicate you. Your voice, your tone, your energy, they all become part of your message. People listen, not just because you speak English well, but because they feel your sincerity. This is why robotic fluency never impresses anyone. You can speak perfectly and still fail to connect. But when you speak imperfectly with genuine emotion, people listen, understand, and remember you. That's the real power of emotional connection. It bridges hearts before it bridges grammar. So, if you truly want to supercharge your English, don't just memorize, feel. Choose stories, songs, or speeches that touch your heart. Let emotion be your teacher, because the words you learn with emotion are the words that will never leave you. One of the biggest turning points in every English learner's journey is the moment they stop translating and start thinking in English. Translation feels safe at first. You hear something in English, convert it into your native language, understand it, then translate back to reply. But this process is slow, tiring, and full of hesitation. It keeps you trapped in a loop where English never truly becomes yours. Thinking in English, on the other hand, is freedom. It means your mind begins to see the world through English words without needing to pass through another language first. It's not about speed, it's about presence. When you think directly in English, you're not analyzing grammar, you're living it, you're not remembering rules, you're experiencing ideas. Adil learned this shift gradually. At first, he translated everything he wanted to say. It made him feel stuck and nervous. But one day, he decided to change his approach. Instead of saying to himself, main market ja raha hoon, and then translating it, he started saying, I'm going to the market, directly in his mind. It felt awkward for a few days, but soon it became natural. The more he practiced, the faster his thoughts aligned with English rhythm. This shift happens through immersion, not through force. The more you listen, read, and speak in English, the more your brain begins to build direct connections. It's like tuning a radio. The more often you stay on one frequency, the clearer the signal becomes. Slowly, English starts to feel like a second voice inside you. Thinking in English also boosts confidence. When you don't have to translate, your speech flows naturally. You stop pausing to search for words. You begin expressing ideas, not just sentences. Even your emotions find easier expression. You laugh, dream, and reflect in English because it feels like a part of your identity. But here's the secret. You don't need to be advanced to start thinking in English. You just need to start small. Describe what you see around you. The sky looks beautiful today. Narrate your actions. I'm making tea. Ask yourself questions in English. What should I do next? Every little moment counts. Over time, your brain rewires itself. The translation bridge disappears, and fluency becomes effortless. That's the real secret. Not more vocabulary or grammar, but training your mind to live in English, one thought at a time. Storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to learn and master English because stories speak to both the mind and the heart. When you listen to or tell a story, you're not just learning words, you're learning rhythm, tone, emotion, and connection. Stories bring English to life in a way that grammar exercises never can. Think about it. Since childhood, stories have been how we learn everything: values, lessons, courage, and wisdom. When you use stories to learn English, you connect with language on a natural human level. You begin to feel the meaning, not just understand it. Every character, every scene, every line teaches you how to think and express yourself in English more clearly and confidently. Adil discovered this secret when he stopped memorizing dialogues and started telling stories. He would take simple events from his day, missing a bus, meeting a friend, watching the rain, and turn them into mini-stories in English. At first, he stumbled. His sentences weren't perfect, and sometimes he had to pause to find the right word. But the more he told stories, the more his English started to flow. The words that once felt heavy now came effortlessly because they were connected to emotions, experiences, and meaning. Storytelling also removes fear. When you tell a story, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're sharing something real. You become more focused on communication than correctness, and that's when fluency begins to bloom. You stop worrying about how to say things and start focusing on what you want to say. Another reason storytelling works so well is memory. Our brains are wired to remember stories far better than rules or lists. A single story can hold dozens of new words and structures, and you'll remember them easily because they're part of a living narrative. It's the same reason we remember lines from movies or books. Stories give language a home in our memory. Confidence grows with every story you tell. Even if your story is short or simple, the act of speaking or writing it strengthens your voice. You begin to trust yourself more, realizing that fluency is not about knowing everything. It's about expressing what you already know with clarity and emotion. So, if you want to accelerate your English fluency, make storytelling your daily habit. Tell the story of your morning, describe what inspired you today, or imagine a future dream and narrate it aloud. Each story you tell will make English more natural, more alive, and more yours. Because in every story you share, you're not just practicing English, you're becoming part of it. Mistakes are not signs of failure, they are signs of progress. Every time you make one, it means you're learning, experimenting, and stepping out of your comfort zone. Yet so many English learners fear mistakes so much that they stay silent, afraid to sound wrong. But silence never leads to fluency. Courage does. The truth is simple. No one has ever become fluent without making hundreds, maybe thousands, of mistakes along the way. Adil used to be one of those learners who avoided speaking. He'd think, what if I pronounce it wrong? What if people laugh? That fear kept him from growing. But when he decided to see mistakes as teachers instead of enemies, everything changed. Each time someone corrected him, he smiled instead of shrinking. He'd say, thank you. That's how I'll remember it next time. With every small error, he gained a deeper understanding of how English really worked. The reason mistakes are powerful is that they create strong learning moments. When you make a mistake and correct it, your brain locks in the right pattern much faster than if you just read it in a book. That's because real experience leaves an emotional mark. It turns confusion into clarity. And remember, even native speakers make mistakes every single day. They forget words, mix up tenses, and mispronounce things, but they don't stop speaking. They keep communicating, laughing, and learning. That's what fluent people do. They don't wait for perfection. They grow through imperfection. The fear of mistakes is often the biggest wall between learners and confidence. But once you break that wall, English starts to feel easier, lighter, and more enjoyable. You stop worrying about being correct and start focusing on being understood. And that small shift in focus builds freedom, the kind of freedom that allows you to express yourself naturally without hesitation. Adil once said, "Each mistake I make brings me closer to fluency, not further away from it." That mindset transformed his entire journey. He realized that mistakes aren't the end of learning. They are the doorway to mastery. So don't fear your mistakes. Collect them. Treat each one like a note from your teacher, guiding you toward growth. Because in truth, the only real mistake in learning English is not speaking at all. The biggest transformation in an English learner's journey happens when they stop learning English as a subject and start living it as a part of their daily life. This shift changes everything: the way you think, listen, speak, and even feel. It's no longer about memorizing, it's about experiencing. You stop treating English like homework and start treating it like a habit, like breathing. When Adil made this shift, his progress multiplied. Before, he used to study English with a heavy sense of duty, textbooks, grammar exercises, word lists, but it always felt distant, mechanical, and tiring. Then one day, he decided to make English part of his world. He changed his phone's language settings to English, started journaling his thoughts in English, and began talking to himself about his day in English sentences. He wasn't studying anymore. He was living through English. Living English means you surround yourself with it naturally, watching English movies not just to practice listening, but to enjoy the story, listening to podcasts while walking, thinking in English while cooking or driving. It's not about adding extra study hours. It's about blending the language into the moments you already live. This mindset shift also changes your emotional connection to English. When you live the language, it no longer feels foreign. It becomes your voice, your perspective, your inner rhythm. You start dreaming in it, laughing in it, even motivating yourself in it. That's when fluency stops being a goal. It becomes your identity. The beauty of this approach is that it removes pressure. You don't need to be perfect because living English isn't about performance. It's about presence. Every conversation, every thought, every line you read or hear adds a layer of growth. You don't notice it day by day, but suddenly one morning you realize that English no longer feels like another language. It feels like a natural part of your thinking. So instead of asking, "How much English did I study today?" ask yourself, "How much English did I live today?" Read, listen, speak, and think in it as if it belongs to you, because it does. When you start living English instead of learning it, you don't just improve your language, you transform your lifestyle, your confidence, and your entire way of connecting with the world. Big changes don't come from sudden bursts of effort. They come from small, consistent actions, repeated every single day. This truth applies to every skill in life, but it's especially powerful in learning English. The magic of fluency doesn't lie in long study hours once a week. It lies in short, focused moments practiced daily. 10 minutes of genuine effort every day is far more valuable than 2 hours of forced study once a week. When Adil first began his journey, he made a simple rule for himself: just 15 minutes a day, no excuses. Some days he listened to an English podcast, some days he wrote a short paragraph about his thoughts, and some days he simply practiced speaking to himself in front of a mirror. It didn't seem like much at first, but after a few weeks he noticed something extraordinary. His understanding grew sharper, his speech more confident, and his thinking more natural. The little steps had begun to build momentum. That's the secret most learners miss. Language learning is a compound process. Each small effort adds up, like drops of water filling a cup. You may not see progress immediately, but deep inside, your brain is building new connections every time you use English. Your listening improves a bit, your vocabulary strengthens slightly, and your confidence grows silently. Then one day, everything comes together, and you realize you've transformed. Small daily actions also remove the fear of failure. When your goal is simple, just to show up for a few minutes, you stop overthinking. There's no pressure to be perfect, only to be present. You make learning light, enjoyable, and sustainable. The power of small habits lies in their rhythm. They become part of your identity. You start seeing yourself not as a student who studies English, but as a person who lives in English. And once that happens, progress becomes unstoppable. So if you ever feel overwhelmed, remember this truth. You don't need to make giant leaps. You just need to take small, steady steps every day. Read a paragraph, listen to a story, speak one new sentence aloud. Over time, these tiny actions will create massive transformation. Because in the end, greatness in English, or in anything, doesn't come from what you do once. It comes from what you do every day. Learning English is not just about communication. It's about connection, discovery, and transformation. It opens doors you never knew existed. Doors to new ideas, new people, and even new parts of yourself. Through English, you don't just learn a language, you learn how to see the world differently. For Adil, English became much more than a tool for success. It became a mirror. When he began reading stories, listening to podcasts, and watching documentaries in English, he wasn't only improving vocabulary, he was expanding his mind. He started to understand how people from different cultures think, feel, and express themselves. Each story he encountered gave him a new perspective on life. He realized that English wasn't just helping him speak better, it was helping him understand better. That's the beauty of English. It connects you to millions of voices across the planet. You can read the thoughts of great writers, listen to inspiring speakers, and share your own story with the world. It breaks down barriers of geography and culture, allowing your voice to travel farther than you ever imagined. Through English, you can communicate your dreams, your ideas, and your emotions with people from every continent. But there's also a deeper door that English opens, the door to self-discovery. When you express your thoughts in another language, you begin to see yourself from a fresh angle. You notice how your words shape your emotions, how your tone shapes your confidence, how your expressions shape your identity. English becomes a space where you can reinvent yourself, not by changing who you are, but by expanding who you can be. Adil often said that learning English made him more confident, not just in speaking, but in living. It gave him courage to share his ideas, to explore new dreams, and to connect with people he once thought he could never talk to. That's what happens when you embrace English fully. It turns from a subject into a bridge, connecting your inner world with the wider world. So, as you continue your journey, remember, English is not just a skill to master, it's a path to discovery. It helps you grow beyond your boundaries, see beyond your perspective, and feel part of something much bigger than yourself. Through English, you don't just reach others, you also reach yourself.